I started in the State Police Academy in August of 1983. I was with the 64th RTT, and we graduated December 3rd of the same year. My first duty station was Northampton B Troop. I was there only 3 or 4 months, and after we graduated, there was another class that came in, so we had built-in seniority. So I was able to come closer to where I lived in Worcester and went to the Sturbridge Barracks. I was there for maybe a year, and then I was asked to come to the CPAC office, which at the time was Crime Prevention and Control, part of the District Attorney's Office in Worcester. And that's where I was until retirement.
So what was your very first memory of the Massachusetts State Police?
Well, I can remember, I think I was back in maybe junior high or high school. On the news was what was going on in Boston with the busing, and seeing the amount of police presence there. And I was just in awe of how the state police conducted themselves, how they looked, how fearless it seemed for them. And I thought, that's an elite police department. And so that's the first I can remember of my really paying attention to the state police.
What do you think some of the biggest challenges you had to overcome were?
Okay. Well, it was a time when women were really breaking on to the police. In most of the local departments, they had some of the women on. The state police, it was kind of took a while. I think initially I was lucky that I had some military background. I think for most of the women, you know, having to cut our hair, and boys regular, although my hair's short now, but I always had long hair. That was difficult. We had mostly male instructors, and going through and doing the things that we had to do in the academy, the same thing that the men did, but hearing some of our classmates saying women don't belong on the job, like we lowered the standard. And I remember standing in the dumpster doing push-ups with these people, or, you know, being pushed in the water full gear and hoping you don't drown, and running through swamps and things like that, and shooting and running with a rifle, push-ups. We did all that, but somehow it didn't affect some of our troopers that still had that sort of caveman mentality. And even though I'm not proud of this, I will share, you know, they don't want you to be salty, which is you've got to know your place. And I had just come up to Northampton, and I had been working, and I'd already had experience. And there was one particular trooper who just every time he had an opportunity would say something negative about the state police. So to set the scenario, I would just keep my mouth shut, and then I finally got to the point where I have to say something. You know, if you don't say something, things may not change. So if you picture the scenario, as I said, I am 5'3". I walked up to him, and we were eye to eye. And I said to him, I don't understand why you don't think that women should be on the job. Well, you're not strong enough, you're not this, you're not that, whatever. I said, you should kiss the ground we walk on. And he looked at me and he said, and why is that? I said, because they didn't allow women on. Short little guys like you would not be able to be on the job. And his face turned red. And I felt awful. I mean, I felt good, but I felt awful. And there were guys in the room, and they're going, oh, she got you, you know? And it was like, and then I looked at him, I said, did it have to come to this? You know, I mean, we're all here together. And sometimes I worried as a woman out there, was someone going to back me up? And did they feel that I could back them up? You know, so those, I think, were some of the main things that for women, or in particular for women on the job.
Okay.
Some of the other things that were very difficult is when, especially when a child did not survive whatever abuse that they had been through. And I remember working a case in CPAC at the time was Sergeant Joe Doheny that was leading the investigation, and it was 3 children in a family had been assaulted. 2 of them died, and one was found, played dead, was hidden in a closet. And it was so sad. Three children in the family, and the parents were out at a bar. And as it turned out, the person who ended up killing the kids was someone who was out socializing with the parents at the bar, and had left the bar, came back, knew that the older girl was babysitting the 2, and sexually assaulted her. And one of the sometimes you look for the smoking gun. In this case, it was a cigarette lighter. And when the sergeant turned over one of the bodies, his cigarette lighter had fallen out of his shirt pocket, and it was under that body. And it had a very distinct marking on it with initials. And at that point, it was just a matter of being able to put all the pieces together and make the arrest. And he finally ended up admitting to it. But the saddest part about that story is, after he did this to these children, he went home and cradled his own baby. It's that kind of stuff that you hear about that you just don't understand. It leaves an impact on you. But it was a tragic thing for the family, but yet we were able to get a prosecution. And by we, I mean the people who were the lead detectives. But I can remember we were 2 or 3 days out in the field and not coming home. And I also remember something that might sound totally simple, but there was an older gentleman when I was in Sturbridge who had a nice older house, and it was up in the woods. And he came down to the barracks one day, and he was all upset because when he wasn't at his house, and he found people were shooting at his house, and he had bullet holes in his siding, and he was really upset. But he wasn't there all the time. There really weren't any neighbors, and it was one of those things that, where are you going to go with this? Is it malicious? Is it just hunters that don't know how to hunt? But he was really upset, and I could see it, and he was elderly, and I thought, if that were my dad, I'd want someone to take it seriously. So I took the investigation, and I ended up going to the local Walmart, and I had some of the cartridges in an empty box there. So I went down, looked through the register. They list who's bought ammunition, and I saw a couple of names of these kids who lived up towards Northampton. And so I decided, they're coming down here. They must be coming down. Maybe they're in the woods. So I called them down. And the first kid came down, and all I did was, I said, I want to talk to you. And he started crying. I did it. I'm sorry. I said, and were you alone? No, my friend who was coming. So as soon as the friend walked in, he sees the other kid crying, he knows they're busted. But I was happy to be able to go back and tell the elderly gentleman that we found him, and I think for him that felt like he was seen and heard, and I think that's what it's all about in interactions with people. It's not everyone is necessarily a dirtbag, and that you may be able to help people even in the smallest way. And something like that just stayed with me. And there were many cases in between that have effects, but just for the sake of these conversations, those two resonated.